Hello, everyone. It's good to see your smiling faces. My name is Alyssa, and I am here to talk about my hyperfixation that no one has discouraged me from turning into a career. If you were people who were going to give me money, like grant advisors, I would tell you that my work focuses on growth patterns in early arthropods, but I don't see a collection plate being passed around the audience. So it might be a little simpler to say that what I study are the growth patterns in weird little freaks from a long time ago. And I want to tell you a little bit about that and my deep, passionate ambitions to build the longest lobster. But to get there, we're going to have to cover a couple of other topics. So, if you, and I want to shout out to somebody else who was talking a lot about David Attenborough earlier, if your last biology lesson was a drunk rewatch of Planet Earth, this might be the question on your mind. Well, simply put, arthropods is bugs. We're talking spiders, we're talking scorpions, land and sea. We're talking your centipedes, millipedes, all insects. And of course, our delicious, delicious friends, the crustaceans. Your shrimps, your lobsters, your crabs, my cat's mouth is watering. That's bugs, and bugs are great because they are most animals, statistically speaking. There are about 80% of the species that are alive on our planet today, and 1 in 4 animals is actually a beetle, so if you're looking around the room tonight, you might make your own judgments. They're incredibly important for biodiversity on our planet, yada, yada, yada. They're in every environment on Earth, from the nullarbor to the eyelash mites, currently living, feeding, and yes, fucking on your face. My parents are going to see this recording later. Hi, Mom. But bugs are important to me for 3 primary reasons. 1, they grow their bodies in these lovely little segments, like this lobster tail here. Yum, yum. Madam President, my cat, her mouth is watering. They also have an incredibly deep history on our planet. So bugs have been around an incredibly long time, and because they have a hard outside 90% of the time, that means that we can study a large number of them and a large number of their segments. And segments are a really deep evolutionary pattern that can tell us a lot about how animals grow their bodies. And that's what I do. I get paid to go dig up really, really old bugs from the outback in Australia and look at how their midsections are doing. So, I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into this little money-making venture. Hello again. It's still me, Alyssa. I'm a PhD candidate at Monash University and a lifelong weird sea creature enthusiast. Now, yes, woo, appropriate. Now, you might be thinking when I say weird sea creature, you're thinking, maybe Victoria State fossil, the lovely Coolosuchus cleelandi, a weird salamander guy that could scarf down a dog-sized ornithopod like a mid-morning snack. You might be thinking big fuck-off shark. You might even be thinking that one thing, from Jurassic World, what ate the big fuck-off shark? Your leviathans, your toothy boys, big snappy jaws. No. All of my animals are spineless. We usually call them invertebrates, but, if the shoe fits. And that might not sound terribly exciting at first glance, but these guys could actually get quite big. We've got an example of one in the audience here. That's about how large bugs could get in the past. And some of them could actually get even larger, about 4 feet, 7 feet. Who cares? The point is, that's not what our Earth is like today. So the reason that we care about bugs from the distant past is because way back, about 500 million years ago, most life that existed on our planet was bug. And this is the very early origin point for most animal groups. You can actually see a couple of guys in this photo here from the Cambrian. That's the period we're talking about. They're a little recognizable. You've got your corals, you've got your bugs, you've got your weird worms. And then you've just kind of got these things that some scientists are calling weird little freaks. Ugh. And my job is to study the weird little freaks. I got started doing this at Macquarie University in Sydney during the lockdown because they told me I could go on hikes outside, and they lied to me. Instead, they stuck me in front of a machine where I got to do a lot of that gold sputter coding that we talked about before, Except my stuff was teeny tiny little cat nail finger-shaped sort of things that are called lophotrochozoans. That is a group of worm clams. You do not need to worry about it. The point is, I got paid a lot of money to zap them with lasers, to look at their outsides, their insides, the elements that made them up, to unravel a little bit of that history. And that meant that I was in a good standing to work with a different group of weird little freaks. But this time they have a name people might recognize and can pronounce. So I came to Monash University a couple of years ago to study arthropods from the Cambrian. And in order to talk a little bit more about that, we're going to have to take a magic school bus style trip into the past. Imagine that Neil deGrasse Tyson is gently whispering in your ear and correcting you on a fact you mentioned earlier. Because it's genuinely difficult to imagine just how distant 500 million years is. We're talking animal life before mammals, grass prairies, trees, dinosaurs. Sorry, there's no dinosaurs in this talk. You should have been here last night. This is before even the development of things like bone. So indeed, almost all of our distant past is boneless buddies. But Cambrian animals were truly thriving. This is a period when animals were first building 3D environments. They were having eyes, they were getting eat, and they were eaten upon. And it was mostly bugs. It was mostly weird bugs. Look at these little freaks. Bugs were so prolific during the Cambrian that they were just most things that you find. About 1 in 8 things that you find from this time period is some flavor of bug, and they grew in a bunch of different shapes. The cool thing about bugs during this time period is they already kind of come complete package. So they've got eyes, they've got guts, they've got primitive brains, they've got little legs. If this is like the dawn of animal life, and you think about it like a house party, these guys were the ones that were first in the door with a slab of VB. There were other little guys hopping around during this time. You've got some of your first predators, you've got imitation shrimp, you've got leg crab. But this might be the one we're familiar with, right? Who's seen a trilobite before? Yeah, that's some muted wooing. That's about the reaction we want. Well, the reason we like these guys is because of a couple of things. One, they're kind of cute. And they grow by adding a single segment every time, and they leave the molt behind, which means we can know all sorts of things about how these dudes are growing their bodies. And they grow in these really predictable patterns. They're in 3 lobes, hence the name. You've got the front end, the middle segments, and the butt. Very, very simple, just like people. And if we know what the basic trilobite body pattern is, then we can predict what the weird ones are going to look like. If they get squished, if they get elongated, and we can figure out how to make them make more segments. Which is useful because a lot of Cambrian bugs are weird little freaks. This guy in particular, this one in the center here, the sad Eeyore-looking fellow, is Balhudicaris. He has about 100 segments, and not a single one is cheering him up. But that's 100 segments, right? That's a lot of bits. And if they're tasty bits, we probably want there to be 100 of them, right? That's good snacking right there. They were eating good in the Cambrian. Don't know what they were eating, but they were eating it. So, that is the goal of my research. I'm working off of trilobites as an ideal organism. We move to the weirder bugs, and from there, we might even be able to say something about the way modern bugs grow their bodies, which means that we could engineer an even tastier lobster. A lobster with more tail, and if it has more tail, it's doing less swimming with that tail, so it's going to be more tender. It just goes round and round. Win-win. And my cat at night, in my dreams, she whispers to me, Madam President, and she says if I make her a really long lobster, when I die eventually, she's not going to immediately eat my face. So I'm highly motivated. And this is my goal. I want to share my vision with you guys because this is really precious to me, okay? It's the long lobster. No, that's pathetic. Get that out of here. I don't know, you guys. I reckon we could go longer. Yeah, that looks about right. So in order to do this, I've been taking a couple of the first toe steps into the water. I'm only a year into my PhD. Please don't export me yet. What I've done so far is take a bunch of these Cambrian little trilobites here from South Australia, and I've analyzed an absolute shit ton of them. What I do is I measure their middle bits on a computer, not while watching Netflix, My Supervisor. I definitely just focus on the science. And I look at the different stages of growth that we have them preserved in. And then I put all of that on a big colorful chart. You too could be a scientist. And essentially what all of these colorful blobs is telling us is that as the trilobites are growing and getting bigger, they're following different patterns of growth. So the little blue ones there are doing something different from the red ones, and they're not conforming to a straight line as well. And what this means is essentially that the younger ones are not following the kinds of patterns that we know and can predict, but the older ones are. And there's a couple of reasons for this, if you really care. We've got enrollment, which is the process in which they become the roly-poly. That's not what scientists call it. I don't know what they call it. And sometimes, bugs, they gotta make bigger bugs so they escape their old skin and become a bigger bug. All of these are important controls on the morphology or the shape that they're making, and probably are driving the sections. Doesn't matter. Turns out you can actually just kind of eyeball this. Yeah, see, look, it's round, and then it's less round, and then it's an oval. I could be a doctor someday. So we're not quite there yet, but we've got those initial stages. We're at step 1, and we're only 2, 3, I don't know, a genetics degree away from making the lobster that's gonna make my cat the happiest girl on this planet. We're gonna feed Madam President the longest lobster. Thank you guys so much.